It's an extraordinary phenomenon that the word God, artheos in Greek, occurs about 1317 times in the New Testament, and it refers to the Father of Jesus. On 2 occasions for sure, the word God is directed to Jesus, one of them in the quotation from Psalm 45, where immediately we learn that that God, Jesus, in a messianic sense, has a God. You can't be God in the absolute sense and have a God. So that's the one about your throne, O God, addressed to the Messiah in a messianic sense. The NAB, the Catholic Bible, nicely has a little g there. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. And then God, your God, has anointed you. So God is still the Father there. And of course, when Thomas eventually sees the point that he couldn't find and couldn't sort out in chapter 14, I've been with you so long, Jesus said, don't you see that you've seen me, you've seen God? Well, nobody's seen God. Jesus said that. Nobody's seen God literally. But in seeing Jesus, you're seeing God because he's the perfect reflection of God, his Father. He says what the Father wants him to say. He does the works that the Father wants him to do. That's very clear. Finally then, the sequel to chapter 14 of John is that Thomas gets it. He didn't get the point on that early occasion. He failed to believe. And so in 2028, he finally gets it. He says, I see now my Lord Messiah and my God. Well, my God is the Father in the language of Jesus. All that's happening there, of course, is that he sees God in Jesus. My Lord Messiah and my God. That's perfectly clear. But Ehrman is right to point out that it's only in the King James, really, that the text has that strange, very late manuscript phrase about three that bear witness, and a Trinitarian sort of a phrase is there in the King James, but it's been relegated to the margin or the footnotes in all modern translations. It's patently a hoax. Isn't that remarkable that the only text which remotely sounds like the Trinity is in fact spurious, while 1317 times the Father is God, clearly. That's massive evidence in favor of what Tom Wright says so nicely about Jesus, that Jesus was a unitary Jewish monotheist in his belief about God. It's time for us then to recover that part of the Reformation that never happened, to drop the anti-Semitism of Luther and realize that salvation is of the Jews. The God, as Paul said, the God of the Gentiles is the same as the God of the Jews, vice versa. Malachi 3:10, do we not all have one Father? Has not one God created us? This is patent Jewish monotheism. But the fact that Jesus affirms that monotheistic creed ought to be a wake-up call to us that we are not following Jesus carefully at that point. This is a very serious matter. Commentators are wont to say, on Mark 12 for instance, that the recitation of the Shema there by the Jew and Jesus is not explicitly Christian. It's not remarkable and not Christian. Well, that's extraordinary. These are the very words of Christ, but they're not Christian. That should be an extraordinarily interesting warning bell, alarm signal, surely, that we're not abiding by the words of Jesus. And on that very important principle of abiding by the words of Jesus, our faith stands or falls. I'll finish with 2 John 7-9. If anybody comes to you and doesn't bring the words of Jesus, the teachings of Messiah, watch out. You might just be being deceived.